Hi, my name is Jesslyn, and I am going to do a video on divisibility rules. These are pretty cool. I use them to this day, especially if I have big numbers. And so these are some divisibility rules that you will know if a number is divisible by a certain number or not. So 2 is really easy. The divisibility rule for 2 is if the number ends in an even number, then we know it's divisible by 2. So basically, if it ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, so if a number ends in 0, 2, 4, 6, or 8, we know it's divisible by 2, okay? So if a number ends in any of these numbers, if it ends in an even number, we know it's divisible by 2. So like 464. It ends in 4, so this is our ending number, which is an even number. We know it's divisible by 2. 465, it ends in a 5. That is not an even number. We know it's not divisible by 2. So that's the divisibility rule for dividing by 2. The divisibility rule for dividing by, let's do 10. A number is divisible by 10 if the number ends in 0. So all numbers that ends in 0, we know it's divisible by 10, right? So even number is divisible by 2. If it ends in a 0, it's divisible by 10. So since 0 is an even number, if it ends in 0, we know it's divisible by not only 10, but it's also divisible by 2. So any number that ends in 0, 450, divisible by 10. 2,358,100 or 120. 2,358,120 divisible by 10. Ends in a 0. Okay, so if it ends in a 0, it's divisible by 10. Divisibility rule for 5, if it's divisible by 5. If it ends in a 5 or a 0, it's divisible by 5. So now, if we see a number that ends in 0, well, that's an even number, and it's divisible by 10 and 5. So all numbers ending in 0 will be divisible by 2, 10, and 5. But only numbers ending in 5 are divisible by 5 in what we have here so far. So if it ends in a 5 or a 0, if it ends in a 5 or a 0, 355 or 350, they're both divisible by 5, okay? So if it ends in a 5 or a 0, you can divide it by 5. Oh, this is my favorite one, and this is the one that I use all the time. The number is divisible by 3 if the sum of its digits is divisible by 3. So take 354. If we add 3 plus 5 plus 4, you get 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, 12 is divisible by 3, which means that 354 is divisible by 3 as well. So sum of digits, and that's divisible by 3. So you add up the digits, and then if that sum is divisible by 3, then the whole number is divisible by 3. I use that one all the time. Okay, 9. Same rule as 3, but obviously the sum of the digits have to be divisible by 9. So the sum of digits is divisible by 9. Okay, not by 3, because if it's divisible by 3, then it means it's divisible by 3. So like 495. If we add those digits, 4 plus 9 is 13, 13 plus 5 is 18. So the sum of its digits equals 18, and 18 is divisible by 9. So 495 is also divisible by 9, okay? And divisibility by 6. So if it's divisible by both 3 and 2, then it's divisible by 6. So you can apply the rules for both 3 and 2. So 2 is if the number ends in a or ends in an even number, it's divisible by 2. This does. 0 is even, so we know it's divisible by 2. Now let's check the divisibility rule for 3. The sum of its digits is divisible by 3. 9 plus 3 is 12. So 9, 10, 11, 12, and that is divisible by 3. So this number is divisible by both 2 and 3, which means that it's also divisible by 6. Okay? So if you check the divisibility rules for 2 and 3, and they both are a yes, then it's also divisible by 6. Okay, 4. 4, if the last 2 digits, so the last 2 digits, if the last 2 digits are divisible by 4, then the whole number is divisible by 4. So like 9,264. The last 2 digits, 64, are divisible by 4. So which means that 9,264 is divisible by 4. Or what about 1,209,124? The last 2 digits here is 24, and we know 24 is divisible by 4 because 4 times 6 is 24. So this whole number is also divisible by 4. And then finally, our divisibility rule for 8. The last 3 digits of the number are divisible by 8. So the last 3 digits. This one's a little harder because sometimes 3 digits, you still don't know if it's divisible by 8 or not, but it's a little easier to do than taking a big number. So like 9,808, the last 3 digits are 808. 808 is easier to deal with than 9,808. So I could say, well, 808, let's see if that's divisible by 8 really quickly. And I could have done this like super quickly like that and know that it's divisible by 8. So this whole number is divisible by 8. This was easier to do than to do this and it not be divisible by 8. Okay, so to check it, super easy, especially if you had like 1,245,378. Like dividing 378 by 8 is a whole lot easier than dividing all of that by 8 just to check to see if it's divisible by 8 or not. Okay, so those are your divisibility rules. Let's go over them one more time. Let's go over them one more time. So if it's even, it's divisible by 2. If it ends in a 0, it's divisible by 10. If it ends in a 5 or 0, it's divisible by 5. If the sum of the digits is divisible by 3, then it's also divisible by 3. If the sum of its digits is divisible by 9, it's also divisible by 9. If the number is both divisible by 3 and 2, it's also divisible by 6. If the last 2 digits are divisible by 4, then it's divisible by 4. And if the last 3 digits are divisible by 8, it's all divisible by 8. Thank you.